The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters.
At the May 30th board meeting, there was a contingency of folks there who were against metal detectors. And I believe Dan had a heads up they were coming, the board president, because he, which he's never done before, and I don't think the board's ever done, extended the public comment period, which is definitely not something at their level of arrogance that they would ever do, because he knew these people were coming. And when they spoke, his demeanor completely changed. He was listening.
And that one reminder of how much time is left on
Right.
the clock. Sorry
And no, you are.
That's all he was concerned about.
When we spoke at that meeting, he interrupted each of us at the 1 minute mark. Now, I'm pretty cool with that. You can try and interrupt me all you want. I'm going to keep going. My husband wasn't. It really threw him off and really kind of ended up ruining his comment. But when those minions that were sent spoke, not one warning, he was engaged. He was smiling. You could tell he was completely open to what they were saying. The board has decided, I think unequivocally, that they don't like us. And that's fine. I do not want to be friends with them, I assure you.
They don't like being challenged.
They don't like being challenged. I think when you're supremely arrogant like our board is, you do believe that you are above being challenged. You are above being questioned. And here we are with our shirts telling them, no, you're wrong. Our students are actually entitled to this. And I mean, to say I'm angry that, and I think I speak for all of us, it's an understatement. We're furious and we demand action, and we demand it now.
As Enrique and Susie had mentioned about the survey, Enrique is 100% correct. It was so faulty. It was so manipulative. It was definitely worded in a way where it was supposed to turn people off to the whole idea of metal detectors and security. And wouldn't you know, it comes back and it shows that more people are in favor of weapons detection systems, metal detectors, however you want to sugarcoat it. Here's my question. You spend $25,000 on a survey to put out to the staff, the parents, the kids, to see what their opinion is. The answer comes back. Mind you, it backfires on them. Regardless, what is left to mull over? What are we waiting on now? I don't know. I don't understand. And now, if you're going to actually make a move and do something, would it now potentially be the time to do it before school starts in the fall? I just don't understand what the whole purpose was of putting out this survey, getting the information, and we're still sitting here waiting.
I can answer that.
I can too.
It's called the second golden rule. Do you guys know what the second golden rule is?
Enlighten me, Marcus.
Yes.
I've got all the gold, I make all the rules.
Yeah.
That's what you're encountering.
Yeah.
Let me give you some hope. I don't know if it's false hope or if it's real hope, but following the Columbine incident, the school district that I worked for hired a consultant to assess their security. And one of the things that they did was they recommended to have one director of security, because there was the key control system was with facilities, the camera system was with finance, the background check. It was all decentralized. So they hired me, I was very lucky, to come in. And what I did was I centralized the functions, and then I recruited a staff at 2 schools. So we professionalized the security function. We trained for, school shootings was still a thing. And we did train for school shootings. We trained for bombs, all sorts of things. So I am hopeful that whomever they put in as director of security for the district will have the authority to begin to build a security program, which is not an overnight thing. Enrique, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I want to summarize some of what we've been saying by simply saying that this board has buzzwords. They're full of buzzwords. I was about to say something else, but they are full of buzzwords as well.
Another B word.
And one of the buzzwords that they like to throw out is equity. That is the board president's favorite word, equity, which to a good progressive means basically forcing an equal outcome when you don't have equal inputs. like everybody can be the star quarterback or everybody's going to get into Harvard or Yale is ultimately where the concept of equity leads. But in the case of District 113, well, for starters, the board president was saying that metal detectors, at one point he made the comment, and they go back to this whole people of color thing or children of color, that somehow they're going to be offended or take the metal detectors the wrong way because maybe and this is where he's implying a lot of stuff where he's not saying that I think is maybe borderline racist in what he's saying, that, well, why are children of color going to take metal detectors differently than other children in the district? So he's going with that and running with that, which I think is just total bunk. But then when you had the graduation ceremonies at Ravinia, 2 separate days, they had security all over the place. They had metal detectors, they had police, and of course the board members and everybody was safe. So when it was time to protect the board members, they gave themselves the best security money can buy. And same at the May 30th meeting when they thought that falsely that somebody was going to try to bring in a gun into the boardroom just so they could show how easy it is to do. They had security. Everybody had to be wanted and their bag searched. Well, the irony of it is this is what we're asking for our children every single day. So they created a system where a situation, I should say, where they were fully protected for those situations. But our kids on a day-to-day basis are not. This is the opposite of equity. This is basically almost like a de facto discrimination that I have to pull back to a Charles Dickens novel, A Tale of Two School Boards or A Tale of Two School Districts, where if you remember the movie Oliver Twist, where you had the fat cat sitting up at the dining table eating the best cuts of everything, and then you had the poor kids in the next room in the workhouse basically eating slop, and then poor Oliver Twist had to go up to the master butler or whatever and say, "May I have more, please?" That's kind of what our children are doing. They're begging for more from basically a bunch of arrogant fat cats who really are after power over how everybody lives their lives. The whole COVID situation showed that very, very plainly. And they're providing themselves with the best security, but they're providing our kids with basically secondhand. The district is a tale of two school districts, and it's because of the board. It's not equity. It's something out of the 19th century.
My daughter sees it. She's 15, and after she spoke on Tuesday, 2 days ago, I said to her, "Lily, you're the smartest person in the room here." I mean, she literally said, again, "Do I have to be shot for you to have metal detectors?" And she likes to write kind of little poems. And in her poems, she said, "I'm old enough to understand." She called it, "I'm old enough to understand." And she said, "I'm old enough to understand that I might get shot at school." I mean, my daughter's saying this. "I'm old enough to understand there's crazy people out in the world. I'm old enough to understand bad things happen." And she said, "I'll never be old enough to understand why we don't make change when it's needed." And that's out of the mouth of a 15-year-old who was on the floor praying for her life for 2 hours. And unlike Enrique, I couldn't reach her. I mean, when I started getting those texts from the district, like any mom would do, I'm calling the school, I'm calling District 113, and I heard something I hadn't heard since about 1985, which is a busy signal. I mean, when was the last time you heard that, right? And I'm furiously texting and calling my daughter, and she knows she's not allowed to use her phone during the school day, and it's on vibrate. And what she told me, which still gives me chills, is she was in her physics class. She was on the floor behind the lab table, and her backpack was on her desk. She wasn't, of course, allowed to go get it, and she could hear the phone vibrating. Her 60-something-year-old teacher, who had just had knee surgery, was at the door with a sledgehammer, and he had told the kids that if someone came in, they were going to throw books at them. And you just mentioned the 19th century, Enrique. I think that'd be a wonderful tactic in the 19th century. You know, in 1823, sure. 1923, that tactic's a little outdated. 2023, what on earth are we doing?
I'm actually an active shooter response instructor, and that's one of the things that they tell people, or we tell people as an instructor, is if somebody does come in your room and is violent, start throwing objects at them. You know, in lieu of greater security, that, you know, you're faced with an emergency, you take action. And I'm going to pontificate for a moment.
Yes.
We're all conditioned to not pull the fire alarm. Don't pull the fire alarm. But when there's a fire, people hesitate to pull the fire alarm because they've been conditioned not to. And it's the same thing that you just described with the phones. We're conditioned, hey, you can't have your phone in school. You have to have it on vibrate. And then an emergency happens. That's the time where it's okay to use your cell phone. Now, I understand she was physically separated from the phone.
Yeah.
That's a different issue. People in society tend to have very short memories, very short attention spans. Do you have plans on how to keep this movement alive as you go forward through the summer, through the next school year, and at least until these ideas get implemented?
I think it's just a matter of continuing to be the squeaky wheel, continue to make noise, continue to take advantage and utilize every and any opportunity platform to be heard, to make our voices heard. And hopefully others, like I said, Marcus, it's frustrating because I get so many people on the sidelines that say, thank you for what you're doing. Bless you for what you're doing. You know, so much, so many accolades. And then it's just, why aren't more people in the forefront, like Enrique and Susie and I? Why don't more people step up and speak out and voice their concerns? And, God willing, at the end of the day, some change does come and we do get metal detectors. But at the end of the day, I always say I sleep very well at night because we have good intentions. What we're doing is good. We're advocating for our kids' safety. And my boys, they see me fighting for them. They see me not being complacent and not just sitting there hoping and praying. Everyone wants to, after a tragedy, they want to sit there and pray. And we got to start being proactive, not reactive. We got to start doing things.
That's called good parenting.
I think
Tell my kids that.
Jenny is a super mom, but I've been told by others we're doing God's work. And I do have to believe that God is on our side. I believe we're on the right side of history. And I do believe that we will win for our children. But what we are going to continue to do, and me personally, we have wonderful media contacts. We're going to continue to reach out. For anyone who's listening here, the next board meeting is July 11th at District 113 headquarters, which is 1040 Park Avenue West in Highland Park. It starts at 7 p.m. If you'd like to come speak, please contact us. Our email address is parents plural, parents SOS for Secure Our Schools, parentssos@yahoo.com. We have had speakers from other communities come, and they have been also phenomenal. We had a couple security consultants come, a metal detector company we hope will be at the next board meeting. We have been fortunate in that at every board meeting, I will say we have completely controlled the narrative. And again, even the media, and I know some people think the mainstream media is all bad. What they forget is that these reporters are also people. We've been very fortunate that many of the wonderful reporters we've worked with are mothers. It's the parents that are going to change the future for our children. They're not ready to take the wheel yet. We're still at the wheel. We are going to get this done. Make no mistake. I know, and I think I speak for everyone here, I will have to be dead to give up.
Very poignant.
I feel, unfortunately, we live in a society from a very young age, at least back before COVID and back through the last 20 or so years when things were quote-unquote normal, to play nice, to be part of the team, to not make waves, to get along, to go to the family dinner and don't talk about anything contentious, and just sort of go along to get along and be a team player. Well, if life is going along smoothly, that's a great philosophy and it works. But when stuff starts to happen that's out of your ordinary day-to-day experience, outside of your comfort zone, like a mass shooting or a lockdown where somebody's running around with a gun and your life is in mortal danger, that philosophy doesn't work. It's no longer time to just use the old playbook. It's time to throw it out. And unfortunately, we're not trained to think in an emergency SOS, as you will, type of mentality. I have spoken to many of my friends and neighbors in Highland Park, and the vast majority of them that I speak to agree with what we are doing. They want more security, but a lot of them are elderly. A lot of them have their own kids and their own commitments, so they're not able to come out and be as active as I wish they were. I am heartened by the survey results, the flawed survey results, but still the results that show that 77% of the respondents want a weapons detection system. So that tells me there is a silent majority out there that at least is willing to speak up on that. My big fear is it's going to take, and this is my fear, I've expressed this to my fellow parents here, that it's going to take another April 4th to get people to really jump into this and be more aggressive about it. I hope to God that doesn't happen, and if it does happen, I hope it doesn't involve an injury or worse yet, a death. But sometimes sometimes something has to hit people really hard in the face and really affect them at a personal level to get out of their comfort zone. That's what it's about, getting out of your comfort zone, standing up to the powers that be, and telling them they're full of it. You guys are doing the wrong thing. Change your course. And it's going to take something of that magnitude to do it. It's kind of like, please, people, find your personal courage. Know what's right, do the right thing, and just get out there and follow your gut and follow your heart.
So I used to work for United Airlines, and when to prepare for one of the meetings, I called our former global director of security, who was our global director of security on September 11th. Wonderful man, 40 years with United, 30 years in global security. And he said to me, you know, Susie, it usually takes great tragedy for people to act. And he said, for the love of God, Highland Park's already had their tragedy. I don't know what more it will take. And that's what we want to ask the board as well. Who's next? Again, my daughter asked the board to their faces in person, do I have to get shot for you to implement metal detectors? And for a parent to have to hear their daughter ask that, for the daughter to have to ask that, again, Jenny said, why do we have to ask for something that our children and everyone is entitled to, safety and security? And if the board can't give that to us, what are they there for? And I invite them to step down and let some real parents take the wheel. I'll step up first.
Unfortunately, unless the board members are directly affected by tragedy,
Yes.
And this is an opinion, they probably will not take action. But this group is such a wonderful idea, such a wonderful group. I actually, when I was a director of security, I advocated for exactly the same thing. I was laughed out of the room. I was also laughed out of the room early 2001 when I presented a plan for a terrorist attack upon the United States. I was laughed out of the room by that superintendent. I left the district, not because of that, but I left the district and I got a phone call about a month after September 11th saying, how did you know?
Yeah.
I didn't. It's creative thinking. It's thinking about, it's Murphy's Law, what can go wrong will go wrong. And it's also the Boy Scout model, be prepared. So you combine those two things.
Worst case scenario mentality. It's planning for the worst and hoping for the best.
Yep.
And unfortunately, we live in a reality where, like I said, no one wants to be asking, no one wants to be talking about these things, but unfortunately, it's the reality we live in. So instead of trying to sweep it under the rug and sugarcoat it and pretend like it's all la-di-da and kumbaya, it's not. And I don't understand when people are going to wake up and start to realize that this is a serious, serious matter. And all we're trying to do is take preventive measures and protect our children.
This, I'm hoping, will catch on with other communities. Would you entertain questions from non-Highland Park people on how they can start a similar group in their community?
Absolutely, yes. One of the things that I think all of us, I know Susie's worked on this, and I kind of started to do a little bit of this today, is looking to other school districts to reach out to, because I realize that a number of parents in District 113 actually don't agree with us and agree with the board and think the board is doing a great job, think that Bruce Law is a great superintendent, and
Until their kid gets shot.
their kids, which hopefully doesn't happen.
God forbid.
Right. But, it's...
When I post stuff on Facebook, on some other pages that I don't control, that I even dare criticize the administration or the board, it gets promptly deleted by parents who are in league, or should I say in bed, ideologically and policy-wise with these people. So have that as it may, I do believe in other school districts there are like-minded people, and I think this is going to become a regional battle. I don't want to sound like I'm overly dramatic, but I think the fight for control of our school boards to teach and educate and our children the way they should, and to run our school districts with the resources, the plentiful resources they already have through our tax dollars, I'm going to go so far as to say that that's the next civil rights battle of the next decade. Because school boards across this country, not all of them, but a large number of them, have a very biased ideology where they have, the word woke is used, but I just prefer to use the word a lack of common sense, because maybe they're so highly educated, the common sense got beaten out of them by very ideologically biased professors in their early years. I don't know, but they're coming up with policies that are ludicrous. And then when it comes to something like safety, you could see it all the more. So to answer your question, yes, we are definitely open to not just entertaining, but actually engaging with other parents in other districts that are fighting a similar battle. I'm prepared, if time allows, with enough time for planning, to go to other districts if they have rallies to support them, and hopefully they will come to our district to support us, because we have to reach across and form a bigger umbrella to fight this.
What final thoughts can you offer to our listeners?
My final thought would be, kids, if you see something, say something. And we're all here saying something. I think everyone is so afraid to fight for what's right.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not the first time I am fighting for what's right. As I know Enrique mentioned, I always tell my daughter, I want you to know we're on the right side of history. I want my child to see us fighting for our rights. I mean, there's a reason we have a constitution and a Bill of Rights. And if you let people trample all over you, if you let your children see that, even worse, that's the future that you are delivering to them. If we lose our rights now, and I believe that safety and security is a fundamental right of school children, one day we're just going to be telling our grandchildren stories of freedom. And I don't think any of us wants that.
I agree that when I was at the board meeting, I was speaking and I said to my 15-year-old Gavin, I said, why don't you come speak at the board meeting? And he said, no. And I said, why not? And he said, Mom, they don't care. They're not going to do anything. And that is both equally heartbreaking for me to hear and also fills me with rage. So I kind of let that fuel me. And every time whether it's me feeling discouraged or tired, because some of these people suck your soul. Like some of the people that I've encountered that are against it and have every ludicrous reason under the sun. I don't want my kids going to a school that looks like a prison or a fortress. I'm like, to that, I say, well, would you rather visit them in a cemetery? Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not sure at this point what you think looks like a prison or a fortress, but when I encounter people like that and I get frustrated and I get discouraged and I just downright tired, I go back to what Gavin said and it kind of fuels me, and I just keep reminding myself we're doing something good here. We have good intentions, and for anyone that says that we're not doing something good or is against us, then I question them. They're the problem, because at the end of the day, I've always told people that disagree with me, all we're trying to do is protect your kids.
Mm-hmm.
So keep fighting and keep doing what's right.
By us fighting to protect our children, we're not just fighting to protect our children. We're fighting to protect all the children. And I would love to see this not just in Highland Park, not just in high schools. There's no reason this should not be nationwide. And I hope that maybe our fight can spur that. That's my greatest dream. I would love to be, you always want to kind of leave your legacy on the world, right? I would be beyond thrilled if part of my legacy was that children, I left the world a better place and maybe left the children in a safer place by part of our efforts.
I'll end with a closing thought of mine that we don't live in the same time with our kids now that when we were growing up. The world is vastly different. I said a little bit ago, and I'll say it again, I think the next civil rights challenge for our generation with kids in grade school and high school is confronting school boards to do the right thing, to getting common sense parents with common sense values into positions of power so they could reverse some of the destructive policies that current, and not just the District 113 school board, but school boards across the country have done. This is a time for courage, parents out there. The school board members, the board president, the superintendent, not just of our district, but of your district, wherever you might be in this great land of ours, they are not gods and they are not kings. They are men and women just like you and I, who maybe just happen to be drunk on their own power and think they know more than you because they are arrogant. They're know-it-alls, and they have the power. They have the money, they have your tax dollars under control, and they can dictate policy. And it affects your children in negative ways. COVID showed that very, very much so. I think a lot of parents became aware of what was going on when their kids were forced home to stare at a screen for the entirety of the school day. I'll just simply say that you can leave a very valuable legacy. Susie spoke of a legacy. I'll add to this. Fight for your children, fight hard, fight the good fight for them, because probably the best legacy you could leave for your kids when they become adults and they have their own kids is that they fight for your grandchildren the way you are fighting for them. Thank you.
I will leave with
Good
one
job.
final thought,
Yes.
and that is something, I think, Susie, you said it, about we don't want our schools to look like fortresses. Two things that I really love to do. I'll give you three things. I love going to the Chicago Bulls games to see them.
Mm-hmm.
My son just got season tickets for the Blackhawks, and you have to walk through a metal detector. It doesn't seem like a fortress. It doesn't seem like a prison. One of the other things I love doing is going on a cruise. What were you going to say?
Airports.
Airports. Okay, well, I was going to say
Sorry,
going
I
on a...
didn't mean to interrupt
It's
you.
okay.
Yeah.
Going on a cruise ship. I don't feel any angst or anything. I got to walk through a metal detector. Everyone does. Great. They're probably looking for booze that you're smuggling onto the ship. But they're also looking for weapons, which makes me feel safe. So thank you, the three of you, for being here, and I hope this spurs some additional community engagement, not only in your community, but in other communities as well. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
so much.
Stay safe out there, and pretty soon I'll see you at the shooting range. This is Marcus Melnick with Firearm Mentor, signing off. The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters.